Not your average tabletop. Woohoo!
Welcome to Not Your Average Tabletop. I'm Zach.
And I'm Pepper.
And what are we doing today, Pepper?
We are giving our first impressions on Cuzco.
Ooh.
A Super Meeple game, at least that's the version we have, from the Kramer Kiesling line of games. I believe this is one in the trilogy, the reprint trilogy, this would be, these beautiful ones, of I believe they call it the Mask trilogy. This one does not have a mask on the cover, but I think the original games did have masks on the cover.
Yeah, this one's got
A llama and some
llama
temples, landscape.
It's a nice looking cover.
Yeah.
Pretty solid.
A lot of color.
Well, yeah, it was one that you had kind of brought. Versus,
Yep.
I think it was one that I definitely heard about.
Yeah.
I think like this and what is it, Tikal?
And Mexica, I think the other one is.
I think, yeah. So I think I had kind of heard of him and looked at him a little bit, but this is a little bit more up your alley. So
Yes.
I think kind of my initial thoughts or hopes for the game, we had done a dual unboxing with this, and
I believe it was this one and Maglev Metro.
oh yeah. So yeah, we had kind of unboxed those together, and both of them were pretty solid, had pretty solid components. But when I opened this one up, I definitely seeing the board and some of the tiles. It was very, very colorful and
Yes.
beautiful. So it had me. That part had me hooked. It was. I think most of the time I do like colorful things, and this one did hit that spot, scratch that itch type thing. So I was really hopeful, and then the tile placement is something I typically like as well. So I was hoping to be something, but then you kind of scared me a little bit by making me think that it might be like one of those chess or Santorini type things where you kind of have to really...
A little more kind of an abstract game where you're trying to sneak around into people's, I guess, I don't know, cities or villages here. Kind of similar to Torres we played, and I don't know if you're the biggest fan of that one, but I feel like those are kind of similar games in gameplay overall.
Yeah, because I mean, I think I enjoy Torres and whatnot, but I just know that there's something about that I'm just not that great at planning it out, and I think you're definitely better than me at seeing some of those like big brain moves. So like kind of those putting those moves together that kind of set you up in a better spot where I might just think like, oh, that looks fine. I'm just gonna do this and then I'm gonna have
Little
it.
does he know I put no thought into my moves.
and then I all of a sudden you pull off this move and I'm like, well, I did not see that coming. And then it's a little disappointing to me. I think I think that's kind of tough when you think, oh, I put this great plan together, and then all of a sudden your opponent's like, nope.
You sit down.
And it's like, okay,
This is mine
now I don't even know what I'm going to do. That totally ruined my whole plans. So I was a little hesitant because you had scared me a little bit with that.
Yeah.
But the color still had me intrigued enough that I'm like, okay, I want to still definitely play this one, give it a good try.
Yeah. Again, it's an amazing production. And I'm a little more into those type of games than you. Which I like games like Santorini and Torres, and then a great production on top of that, with like you said, it's so colorful, the board with the yellow, the green, and the blue, and then those temples that stack on the board. And I'd seen pictures of the finished board, and it just looks like an amazing landscape, like it was built to look good, but it's actually just the result of gameplay. So I was very excited to get it to the table, just for the look of the game, as well as the gameplay. So, yeah.
Yeah, I figured you were pretty excited about it. After you were explaining it to me, I thought that would probably be right up your alley. But yeah, so then we played it. Well, did you play?
I played it once two-handed as two players, which I often do. And then to kind of get to know the game, and then we just played it the other day for the first time together.
Yeah, and it's a pretty simple one to learn. There's not too many rules about it, but it's definitely one that once you kind of get the board going, it's a little thinky. Definitely, there's some analysis paralysis potential out there. So it's definitely one. you're really bad at that, then probably wouldn't suggest it.
Yeah.
We are both not the greatest with it, so
Makes
probably
us a
goes a
good
lot
match.
longer than makes it go a little longer than it probably should. But yeah, if we played with people that were a little bit quicker, they might not have a very good experience at all. But yeah, with my first impression, I'd probably have to. I mean, with the simplicity of it, I think I have to give it like an 8.25,
Ooh.
maybe. So I
Got him into the 8s.
it had me wanting to play it again, but it was a little late to play it again.
Yeah.
Because, like you said, by the end of it, the board looked extremely beautiful. One of the most
Yes.
beautiful things I've seen, like the finished product of a board look like, because
yeah.
it just looked like an actual landscape.
Yeah.
Based on placing like those lakes or water
yeah.
spots, so then that kind of made it like the land go down into that, so you have
Yeah.
like the kind of the terrain looking stuff as you're adding
Yeah.
these, trying to get higher positioning, and
Yeah.
just kind of the way those things all work together. It was just a real blast, and it was one that I still felt like I had a chance. Well,
yeah.
I ended up winning, but
You
I
did
feel
win.
like you just let me win so that I would play it again. So
Yeah, 'cause it
I'm
was-
waiting for this next time when you beat me by 100
It
points.
was neck and neck for most of the game, and then you can see right when I knew that I was gonna win and he would never play the game again, I just let him go and let him win by
wouldn't-
about 20 points.
I wouldn't doubt it. but
Playing the long game.
but yeah, it was a lot of fun. The tile placement, the way you couldn't place a tile like completely covering
Oh yeah,
or just covering one tile. I thought that was pretty interesting how that worked.
yeah.
Or the same type of tile.
yeah, yeah,
That just it made it how the board. I don't even know how to describe it.
but yeah, it kind of created natural layers to the board, I guess.
Yeah. That's what I would say. 'Cause, yeah, it made it so you still wanted to like create villages or have
yep.
those connect, but then like so there were 3 hexagon
yep.
pieces or kind of put into one piece. It's like a triangle type piece, and you kind of put it over the other ones, so you'd cover up 2 spaces with 2 grass spaces, but then you have 1 village. So kind of not only like creating those natural like hills or whatever throughout the thing, but then also trying to position it just right so that you can connect village pieces together, because that's what you're really trying to do, I think, is get 2, 4, 6, 8, or 10 of those pieces all combined. And then you want to also be on the highest spot with the meeple. Just the combination of those things together really was interesting. It didn't. I'm trying to think if this feels like any other game, and I'm not really thinking of anything that it feels like.
Yeah, I can't think of anything. I mean, the closest thing I can think of is Taurus, where someone's kind of building something up and you're trying to sneak into it. But yeah, like you said,
there was something about this one that didn't feel as nasty in a way.
yeah,
I think there were just a few things like being able to get half the points for things that you may lose control of. And still, not always, but typically still having a chance to get control back of things that you lose, depending on when it is in the game and kind of how it's set up. Just being able to actually do that, I don't think that comes through in some of those other games as much. Like sometimes once you make a mistake in those games, you're pretty much done. Whereas this one doesn't feel like it totally loses you a game. It still is disappointing, but it's not nearly as disappointing as some of those other games where you misstep on a move and then you're all of a sudden way behind and you have no chance of coming back.
Yeah, I feel like that's one of the best things of this game is even if someone takes your move that you were planning to do, there's usually something out there that you can do. Because you get 6 actions, and it's like, that's not much to do anything. But then I think just in my first turn, I laid like 4 tiles, moved a guy in there, and built like a 4 temple. And it's like, oh, you can do quite a bit on a turn. And as the board grows, you can just get even bigger and bigger moves. So I think usually, even if your opponent has a good move, you can usually fire back with a just as good move. Whether it is with building those temples or hosting a festival, or you could even cut I mean, I love the tile placement and figuring out how you can place them to possibly connect or cut off
Right.
cities to then, because you can't have more than one temple in a city, so if this temple's built, you can kind of cut that off and take pretty much the rest of the city for yourself and
Right.
build a temple there. I really love that aspect and trying to figure out how to make those moves in this game.
Yeah, for sure. And then, like you said, the temples, you could only have one in each one, so kind of two sometimes. Once you split them up, you can make it so someone really can't, like, alter some of the spaces because you can't reconnect those if they both have temples in them. So it's kind of interesting how you can almost use that as a blocker, too, in certain situations. Just the way that all kind of works together is just really unique and interesting. It just has me wanting to... I don't know what it is about the game exactly, and I don't know if it would feel samey after, multiple plays, but it is one that I definitely, right now, I'm excited to play some more for sure. I'd be interested also to know how this will play. I think on Board Game Geek it says, or the highest recommendation is 3 players. I think it worked pretty solid at 2. I don't know how 3 and 4... if it'll get too random and too wild, too much change between your turns and stuff, or if it'll still feel like you get it. And also with because the tile amounts don't change for player count, so I would assume then you're doing less in the game. So it'd be interesting to kind of see how that actually would work.
Yeah, that is interesting. But yeah, again, there's like a ton of tiles. So once we start, and it's like, once we place the last one of these 80 tiles, then the game ends. And it's like, this is going to take 5 hours. But yeah, it really goes at a good pace, I think, this game. And even though there's those times where you slow down and analyze things, the person waiting can do that same thing for their next turn. So I even though is quite a bit of downtime, especially if you have AP like us, and mostly me, but I think that it still works in this game. I think it's one of those games where that's fine.
Yeah, a majority of the time.
Yeah, I think it might have been the Christmas music we were playing, the kind of background music we were playing while we played, but it feels kind of a relaxing game, even.
Yeah.
With the beauty of it and the building out and kind of, I don't know, it seems like it should feel more cutthroat, but I felt pretty calm playing it.
Yeah, now that you say that, I think I agree on that. I think, there was just the one time where he made a really good move and ended up kind of taking me out of 2 different temples and you gaining control of both of them.
I only did that because you spooked me.
That is
moving
true.
your meeples
and
over there.
Actually, I think that ended up benefiting me more because, I was trying to block you, but obviously I did not do a good job of that at all because somehow me trying to block you from taking these 2 different ones ended up with you somehow taking control of 2. The one I didn't even really think about you taking. So that kind of came out of not out of nowhere, but because I was positioning myself weirdly in your mind, you were thinking, oh boy, he's thinking of doing a move here and he might mess up what my plans are, so then you kind of did something you were hoping to do later in the game. I was hoping that to be about my last move, but I had to do it a few rounds earlier. So it is interesting to kind of think, too, because what your opponent's thinking, especially if it's a 2-player game, because they could be thinking something totally different than you, or thinking about a different part of the board completely, especially once the board starts getting spread out a little bit more. So you might be thinking, they're going to try to do this, they're going to try to do this, and then there's the center of the board, I thought you were going to try to do something to me there, and once you kind of place there, you never ended up touching it again, but I was just always thinking, like, okay, well, if he does that, then I'm going to have to do this.
I saw you were thinking about it, and you're kind of paranoid. I'm like, I'm not even thinking about going over there. But I'll let him feel that.
Right, so it is interesting in that way, but, I didn't ever feel, I think you're right. I think it did feel relaxing, because I think it's something about the colors and placing the tiles is really fun.
It is satisfying.
Weirdly satisfying compared to some other tile placement games. Some of those are satisfying too, but this one is more so than those.
So like even if someone does a great move and kind of ruins your game for a minute, it's like, that was pretty cool. So
Right.
I enjoyed it quite a bit. I'd probably give it a first impression of, I'd say 8.75 to maybe even a 9. I really enjoyed it.
Interesting. I didn't know how much you liked it or not. After getting
Yeah, I'm liking it even more now that I know you like it.
Yeah, we might
I'm
have to
surprised.
play it again. And then I'll get walloped, and then it'll go down to a 6. And I'll be like, yeah, he was taking it easy on me the first time. And now he beat me by 250 points somehow. But no, I think those are our first thoughts on Cuzco. Is there anything else about the game? Yeah, I don't know how much obviously without trying it, I don't know how much I'd recommend it at 4, especially if there's AP in your group, because it could end up taking a while, especially in the later parts of the game, because, kind of once you get down to those last few things, you're really trying to set yourself up to be able to score end-game points. So I could see those last rounds taking quite a bit of time, especially if you had the maximum players. But I think other than that, if your group isn't too bad, I think it would still work pretty well at 4 players as well. But I think it's a pretty solid 2-player.
Yeah. And again, on endgame scoring, I really like it's unique in this game where we do our scoring separately. Which there's a lot of games that kind of have separate scoring. You score your own stuff, but you're scoring the same stuff at a different time. So I take my last turn if I place the last tile, and then I score for my influence in all of the cities for the temples built there. And maybe I got first place in this one and second there. But then on your turn, you get one more turn to possibly even get higher than me in that city and also score first place for that city. I found that really interesting, how you kind of got one last shot to just get as high as you can in all of these different cities.
Yeah, that is definitely something different than any other game I'd seen, and it's a very interesting take on that, because then it also comes into play as to when you want to end your game, because if I wait, then someone might cut me off, and then am I going to be able to use my remaining stuff to get back into position in my last turn, or is it better for me to just try to end it now so that you're not able to take those 2 turns to do it or whatever.
But then to end it now, maybe that means you had to place 3 tiles, and you want to use those actions for other things.
Right, yeah. So it makes it very interesting towards the end of the game, for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is our first impressions of Cuzco. If you've made it this far, we appreciate it. Leave a like if you liked the video. Also, feel free to subscribe. It's free.
For now.
For now. But otherwise, we will see you next time. And as always, do not forget to
keep on nibbling
on our content.